Hey guys, have you ever seen a presenter or someone that's hosting a show like Harry Cole, who invites one of the best public speakers in the world right now, someone that's very forthright, very brave, very open to give his opinions, and won't back away from the controversial or sensitive subjects, only to not follow up on any questions and actually downplay most of the things that that person says, the person that he's brought onto the show specifically. Almost as though he's not interested in what the person says, he's just interested in the views, and quite often shits himself whenever something gets even slightly controversial. Harry Cole is apparently going to save the West. Did you know that? That's what his show. Harry Cole saves the West by not engaging in the conversation and avoiding the difficult subjects. Let's see how this goes.
If raising legitimate concerns about thousands and thousands of unchecked foreign males illegally entering our country makes me far right, then so be it.
Carlson, welcome to Harry Cole Saves the West.
I would dispute your characterization, but thank you, Harry Cole. I'm glad to be here.
I want to put a story to you, sir, about Hadush Kabatu. He was a 41-year-old Ethiopian illegal immigrant who crossed the English Channel on a small boat. Just 8 days later, he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old British girl. He was sentenced to 12 months in prison, but last Friday, he was mistakenly released instead of being deported. It sparked a manhunt that lasted 3 days. Could you think of a more fitting obit for the West?
And not just for the West, but for the seat of the West, more specifically the seat of my church that I grew up in, and that would be Great Britain. I'm half English. I have family there. If there was ever, well, first of all, this is like, I haven't kept count, but I don't know what number this is in the litany of morally grotesque outrages committed by the British government against its own indigenous people. And
even Tucker Carlson recognises that the British government is the enemy. And I think a lot of people need to start understanding this, right? If you have an enemy that hates you and wants to destroy you, then there's no voting that enemy out. There's no way that you can just be like, hey, can you just stop being evil? Can you please, stop these people coming into our country? Can you please start deporting these people that want to hurt us? No, instead they do what they've actually done. They engage in Operation Scatter, where they place these people in all of the most vulnerable areas around the UK, right next to primary schools, right next to village squares and things like this, almost as though it's intentionally evil.
at some point, you've got to wonder, like, how much is enough to trigger the overthrow of the government? For real. I mean, revolutions have been fought for far less they were in my country. My country's created over taxation, not over letting illegal aliens rape your citizens with impunity
over decades. He's about to say over decades, and that's true. Right? All of these things, they're patently evil. And I will say this, guys, for all the people out there that are saying, well, what should we do? What should we do? I honestly believe if the people of the United Kingdom decided as a collective to go down to London without any permission from the government, without any permission from the police, without them saying, oh, well, you have to march down this specific road at this specific time and then leave at this specific time. Oh, yes, sir, I'm going to do my protest just the way you want, sir. If they didn't do that and everyone just went there en masse, no planning, nothing, just turned up with the aim to overthrow the British government, I think internationally that would be supported by every single country. Well, obviously not the ones that have been co-opted by certain tribes, but those countries that are still free would support the United Kingdom and its people. Now, I'm not saying you should do that because that's illegal. But I mean, if you were to do that, you wouldn't really care about that being illegal, would you? I'm just saying, as a thought experiment, you wouldn't really give a fuck whether it's illegal or not. You'd just do it. En masse. I don't know, like on the 5th of November or something like that. That would be a good date. It would be poetic, wouldn't it?
decades, which your government has done. I don't really understand what's going on in Britain. I'm a frequent visitor. I'm going again soon. I was just there. But clearly it's being changed into something completely different. Its indigenous population is being replaced and humiliated in the process. And I don't understand why they're putting up with it.
The story is like,
Oh, great. Harry Cole just ignored that entire thing. Just ignored the whole thing. Like a robot, he moves on to the next question.
the grooming gang scandal that saw Pakistani origin men rape British girls across.
He can't even say it. This is the problem with these people, guys. He can't even say it. He hasn't got the balls to just say this openly. Struggling to get through that question. Like he's never even said that before. It's fucking wild.
Northern England for decades. It took Elon Musk to bring that story to the boil, to get a public inquiry launched into it.
Again, that loaded question is disingenuous. It's really bad, guys. It did not take Elon Musk as a outsider, right, to start the investigation into the grooming gangs. People have been talking about this for decades, but they've been shut up. They've been hounded. They've had their bank accounts taken away. They've been put in prison because they've been talking about this. Elon Musk, the only reason that this gained traction is because he bought a £44 billion platform called Twitter, turned it into X, and then no one was allowed to shut him up. Therefore, the establishment lost control of the narrative, and they had to start talking about this. Elon Musk isn't just like this catalyst that blew everything away because of his charisma. It's because he bought a £44 billion platform, and that's something that no one in the UK could do. That's the reason.
And there was a moment of collective sort of reckoning needs to be had across Britain about that scandal. Why do you think it takes an outsider to show Britain's quite how bizarre and sickening some of the...
Again, he's framing the UK and everyone in the UK as weak, as though we weren't capable of having this conversation. I don't like Harry Cole, and I'm liking him even less with each question.
things that are happening in their own country are.
I don't understand it. And I said to an English friend of mine recently, well, I'll just say it's Piers Morgan, who's, you know, we don't agree on a lot, but he's, I think, a pretty reasonable guy and a fun person to talk to. And I said, did you guys win the war, World War II? Because this is the behavior of a defeated, vanquished nation, not the behavior of people who have any respect at all for themselves, their grandchildren, their forebears, their language, customs, culture, religion. I don't understand this kind of behavior. It's not just...
It's weird, isn't it, guys? What happened after World War II? What happened after World War II? There was a mass movement of people around the world, and with that mass movement of people, every single country that they went into started to get worse.
Masochistic. We passed that long ago. This is suicidal. And what accounts for it? What did Britain do wrong that it has to commit collective suicide like Jonestown? I really don't. I honestly don't understand it, but I also think, though it's a relatively small nation, it has outsized influence because of its imperial past, but also because it's the seat, it's the global seat of Protestantism, Christian Protestantism. And so, you know, I feel that as a lifelong congregant in a Anglican church in the United States, like when your country goes, it takes a lot with it, even though it doesn't have the power. So
if I was the interviewer, if I was Harry Cole, I would ask the question, well, who would gain from destroying the moral center of the West? What groups of people would gain the most from destroying the UK, which is, like you said, the Anglican center of the world? Who would gain the most by destroying that moral center? But Harry Cole's not gonna do that, is he?
It had 100 years ago. It still has moral power. And so when it evaporates, when its people kill themselves, when it's majority non-Britain, which it will be soon, like that has huge ramifications for the world. Why are you allowing this?
What would Americans do? What would America be doing in this scenario? Why? What is the difference there?
Probably sitting back and taking it. I mean, I guess what we wouldn't be taking. No, it's true. It's happening across the white world. I mean, there will be no white majority countries in 100 years. And we're really discouraged from saying that. I think you can get arrested for saying that in Britain, but it's hardly a statement of bias.
Fuck Keir Starmer then.
It's a question of noticing numbers, demographic changes. And like, what is that? And I honestly don't understand, but I think it's the biggest thing to happen in the last 1,000 years. I really do. It's the elimination of an entire people. And why? Like, what's the point? I've never been particularly interested in the fate of white people. I've never even really thought about it. But you look at the numbers and you're like, there are going to be no majority white countries very soon.
So Tucker Carlson actually answers his own question later when it comes to that specific one. I will just say, prefacing the answer that he'll give, it's going to be very, very handy if you were if you were an enemy of the West and you wanted the West to no longer be a problem for the rest of time. The best thing to do would be to lower the collective IQ of that entire population in each country, race. Lower it to the point where they're not smart enough to fight back or even understand the problem, but just high enough to be able to do a job, around about 90. So an average IQ of around about 90 is just enough to be able to do the jobs that they want you to do, but it's not high enough to understand why you're living in slavery and how to get out of it.
This was not an accident. It wasn't organic. It was done against the will of the people, the citizens of those countries. It was done extra democratically. It was done to them rather than for them. They sat back and took it. I'm not exactly sure why, but who did it and why? And I personally think, my suspicion is it stems from the misgotten belief that the main lesson of the Second World War was majority white Christian countries are a threat to world peace. I don't believe that's true. I don't think there's any evidence of it. You had one that was, clearly, probably two that were, but that's not true of all Europe.
A threat to world peace. Who deems us a threat? There must be a group out there that is saying, well, all white people are a threat to world peace, right? But who is that group? Do you think it's the Arabs, the sheikhs in Saudi Arabia? Do you think it's the Chinese? Someone else? Who do you think it is?
And Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States is not, we weren't implicated in that. So why are we suffering the consequences? It's just a guess, but something is going on systematically. Great Britain is ground zero for it, but New Zealand and Australia, I don't know if you've been recently, Canada, I don't know if you've been recently, US also, they're all suffering from the same thing. And it's coordinated, it's an act of brutality, and it's guaranteed to create radicalism and strife and violence. So like what?
Wonderful, wonderful engagement by Tucker Carlson here. Let's see what what his follow-up question is. I'm sure it's going to be really insightful.
What the hell is going on?
Do you think that's where we're heading into a violent backlash against this?
Wow, amazing. That's so cool. Do you think that's where we're heading? Do you think we're heading into a violent backlash against us? Not like it's already been happening, Harry. No, ignore the last 30, 40, 60 fucking years. Let's think, are we going to head into that violent backlash against us now? That's a great question. Thank you, Harry.
Well, you can't just take a people who are from a country and have been there. Well, in your case, in the case of Britain, the case of England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, this is the indigenous population that's been there for thousands since recorded history. Mm-hmm. I mean, your ancestors have bones at Stonehenge, so it's not like these are not settler colonialists, as they say.
Quite a lot of Brits who can trace their French origin as well. There was
totally disingenuous twat, isn't he? What are you talking about? Tucker's talking about ancient history, and you're talking about the fucking Huguenots.
There was movement in previous centuries, and
there was movement, but not that much movement actually, and we know that from DNA samples from archaeological digs throughout the British Isles. Yeah, of course there was some movement.
Guys, I just have to say, right, I think these people are part of the problem. Like, they come on here and they pretend they're on your side, but he's immediately trying to downplay what Tucker Carlson is saying. When Tucker just said, the British people have been here for eons, as long as human recorded history, and then Harry, or is he called? Yeah, Harry goes, but we've had immigration. We've had loads of it. Wait, come on, look, like the Huguenots and stuff, and on all the, come on, it's not that long, right? I mean, we're a nation of immigrants, right? Fuck off.
The Norse posing as the French invaded you in 1066. I got it. I'm sort of familiar with the history, but basically it's been a very stable population for all recorded history. And now it's turning over in 2 generations. There hasn't been change like that in any country in all of history.
Well,
what is that?
It feels to me that America has slightly got a grip on this before. Donald Trump certainly has got a grip on it before. Elected at a similar time to Keir Starmer in Britain, on a similar mandate for change and controlling borders. The president seems to have got a grip on the southern border whereas in Britain they're facing record numbers of crossings. But this is legal migration. Before we even get on to legal, the illegal numbers are soaring. The legal numbers are out of control as well. But on illegal migration, what is Donald Trump getting right, and what advice should he be giving European countries, Britain, France, Germany, who are suffering from this as well? What is the secret sauce that Trump has, which other world leaders don't seem to have woken up to yet?
Let me just say, none of it's legal. It's not legal. I mean, it may conform to the letter of the law, but it does not reflect in any sense the expressed will of the population.
Perfect response to that. And again, a loaded question. He even said, yes, there's plenty of problem with legal migration, but what about the illegal one? How do we tackle, what about the illegal migration? Yeah, dude, the legal migration is the main problem. The illegal migration is the one that's pushed by the media. That's the one where they're like, oh, look over here, these few thousand people coming on a boat. Meanwhile, millions of people are streaming through the airports. That's the bad thing. And by the way, Trump hasn't solved that. There's millions of people, Indians, tons of Indians. I think Trump just said another 500,000 Indians are allowed in the latest trade deal. That's not going to be good for your country, guys. That's not going to be good. So these leading questions are loaded questions by Harry, trying to get the answer that he wants. Very, very annoying for me to watch.
Of any of those countries, it's being done to them. So it is totally illegitimate. It is completely anti-democratic, and it's grounds for overthrowing the government. I just want to be totally clear about that. This is an act of violence by these Western European governments, the government of Canada, the government of New Zealand, the government of Australia as well, against their populations. There's nothing legal about it. They can say, well, according to this or that. No, that's all fake.
Yes.
This is an atrocity being committed against the population. So,
yes, I agree. And by the way, guys, if you get a government like the Labour government that was elected on 10 campaign pledges, and they did not enact a single campaign pledge that they were elected on, and they then went further outside of their mandate to implement digital IDs, to increase the amount of immigration entering this country legally and illegally. If they've done everything against the will of the people, then they don't have a mandate. They're an illegal government. They have no legitimacy. They should be, and I think the world would support the UK people if this happened. I think the world would support the people of the UK if they were to overthrow the government. That's what I'm saying. I think the world would support it. They would rally behind the people of the UK and they would support them 100% because they can see how evil this government is. They can see what they're doing. It's obvious to everyone. Everyone's asking, well, why don't you do something? So if people did start doing something, I think that the entire world would support them.
I really hope that at some point they will do whatever it takes to stop this, because it's a historical question. It's not just a matter of like some crappy guy gets elected prime minister and we have to suffer through him for some period of time. This is like the end of something ancient and important. And right now is the last moment where it can be stopped, where people who are not British can be deported right away and the country can be restored to its historic and ancient state. So what is Trump doing? He's describing the problem. And I do think that all change begins not with violence, but with an honest description of what we're watching, with words, with telling the truth. And Trump alone, among all U.S. politicians for generations, just said it out loud, what it turns out the majority of the country was thinking. And in some cases, he said it inartfully or imprecisely, but he described the core truth, which is this is too much change. Nobody wants this. Nobody voted for it. You're doing it to us. And if you keep it up, we're going to have a political rebellion, which we did. And it's been, to some extent, effective, but it hasn't really changed the facts on the ground, which are that the American population is changing much faster than it ever has before, and much, much faster than legacy Americans, that is, Americans whose parents were born in this country, want it to change.
So Tucker just said the quiet part out loud, that actually, yes, he has closed the border, but legal migration is changing America just the same as it's changing the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand. All of the Anglosphere is being swamped with people that shouldn't be there. And that's not a coincidence. Again, like there's probably a group there must be a group of people out there that really want this to happen for certain reasons. It's orchestrated. They're doing it on purpose. So we should probably be having that conversation as well.
So it's a problem, and it's very destabilizing. Nothing is more destabilizing than mass migration and abrupt demographic change.
Do you think is there anyone in the political landscape across Europe, in Britain, or indeed in America, President Trump aside, perhaps, that you kind of look at it, think, that guy, that girl, they get it, they understand?
Again, this kind of question is so misleading. Harry knows that there's no one in Europe right now that is leading the charge, apart from maybe a couple of people that are not currently elected in Poland. The previous administration in Poland, that's probably it. Hungary is not even close to this right now. There's probably no one. Harry knows this, but I think these questions are meant to demoralize. I think they're meant to demoralize you. I think he's doing this on purpose. Harry Cole fucks the West should be his channel name. And
they are being honest. Is there anyone you can see having that?
There's not one person. I mean, there are, I know a bunch of people in your country who are irritated about it, who are organizing. I know Nigel well, and I really like Nigel so much, and I think he's done more than any other living Briton to help. But, to fix this, you're going to need to take a really uncompromising stand, like no mas. You can't do this. And if you continue to do it, we're going to shut it down because it's existential. I mean, you're fighting for Britain itself. And I think that would require the kind of resolve that would get you thrown in prison immediately. Yeah. 3 times the number of Britons have been arrested for speech crimes in the last year than Russians under Vladimir Putin. 3 times.
And yet in the same breath, people will say to me, why are you not in the UK, Dino? Why are you not you should be in the UK doing this. You should be in the UK saying everything that you've currently said, being as forthright and as honest as you are. Yeah, you should definitely just get yourself locked up for the rest of your life. That's going to help the UK. Come back, get yourself locked up, son. Cheers, guys. Yeah. I'm ignoring those people, everyone. I'm ignoring those people. I think I'm doing a good job, and I don't think I could do this within the UK. Not the way that I do it. It's too raw, it's too hard-hitting, and it's too truthful.
We've had that discussion.
Over 12,000.
We've had that discussion at length on this show, and we will touch on it again later, I hope. But just while we're on Nigel Farage, you know the guy. As you say, he'd probably end up in prison if he said some of the things you recommended he say. Certainly would find it very hard, I think, to win an election up against the might of the BBC, the liberal media, the cultural elites. The problem is that we're in a sort of catch-22, are we not? And the fact is that anyone standing up and saying what the problems are and taking extreme measures as you recommend is unelectable.
I mean, I do think that the self-hatred runs deep in the UK. I've experienced it at dinner parties repeatedly. You say what's obviously true. Hey, this doesn't look like the England that I grew up coming to, that my ancestors lived in. This looks completely different, and it looks way worse, actually. This place is falling apart. And these new immigrants have no respect for your culture or your religion or your language, and they're wrecking it, and you're allowing
or your life.
Allowing it, and why are you doing that? Boy, if you say that, which is all true, of course, 100% true. If you say that at dinner, even with Tory voters, they're like, "Oh, shut up, shut up." I think because they're humiliated by it, which I understand. Like, why have they allowed that? Why does everyone allow it? I don't get it, and they feel very.
No one's allowed it, Tucker. For years and years, we were told to be good Christians, and then as Christianity started to dwindle, we were just told to be good people. We were told that it was politically incorrect. We were told to not see race. We were told a lot of lies that they didn't tell the people coming into our country. So therefore, we were at a massive disadvantage. They seized large swathes of institutional power, which means that they were allowed to then import even more of the same people that also hate the country. And it's been a snowball effect since then. Now people are waking up. Government starts to lock those people up, to silence them, to shut them down, to eventually they're going to start giving people digital IDs, which will control them entirely. So I don't think we've let them at a single stage. We have voted against this every single chance that we've had. No true patriot ever wanted this. There's a lot of people in our country, though, that are not patriots. They're quislings and they're traitors.
Very judged and angry when you say it. And so they, are browbeaten into voting for people who hate them and want to destroy their country and their grandchildren's future. I honestly, I don't get the psychology. I'm not like that. I'm not self-hating for no reason. And Britain has no reason to be self-hating. Sure, it was a colonial power, of course. I don't think you could defend the Raj in its entirety. There are probably a lot of things you couldn't defend, but it's hard to defend any empire because they all have excesses and they all get way over their skis and do things that are shameful in retrospect. But I would say compared to any other empire, the British Empire was basically benign and self-aware and constructive. They actually built things, unlike the American Empire, which has built literally nothing but airfields. So I think there's a lot to be proud of for the Brits. I'm not even in favor of colonialism. I don't like empires. However, you had one, and compared to everyone else's empire, compared to what, the Roman Empire? Do you know anything about it?
Yeah.
You know the Incan Empire?
Yeah, I mean,
it was basically a pretty decent empire, but they'll never stop self-flagellating over it. I think it's the weirdest thing
We don't self-flagellate, Tucker. We're told that it's wrong by the same people that you meet in those dinner parties. But the British public love the empire. We love the history. We love everything about it. It fills us with pride. So again, you're speaking about us as a collective, but we're not a collective. We've been betrayed. And the people that you're talking about are the ones that betrayed us.
I've ever seen.
Well, I mean, that is, we could sit here and talk for hours about the merits.
Yeah, he doesn't want to talk about that, does he?
Merits of the British Empire. I'm not sure our viewers and listeners would.
Yeah, this is the thing, Harry. Your viewers and listeners are interested in the empire. We're proud of the empire. It's just that your viewers and your listeners are probably not. The same ones that Tucker meets in those dinner parties. The same ones that would turn up their nose as a working class man walked by. The same ones that would say that you have white privilege. The same ones that say that diversity is your strength. The same ones that would say to a working class girl, shut your face, stop talking about the grooming gangs for the sake of diversity. Those people, those are the people that you're currently worming yourself out of this conversation for.
Put up with it for too long, though. I mean, it is a well-versed conversation. But that point you make there about Brits being
it's really not. It's not. Wait, hold on. I don't agree with you. I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm not British, but I've spent enough time there to know there's no one defending it. And instead, everybody seems to have decided we have a lot to be ashamed of. No, you don't actually. Compared to what? Have you been anywhere? Have you traveled? What you're ashamed? What are you ashamed of exactly?
I'd say we make a pretty good case. All you should be
ashamed of is your weakness and your self-hatred. That is shameful.
No, I agree with that, but he's obviously he's not met the working class. He must have been just around these socialites and these wankers that have the dinner parties. When Tucker says that everyone in the UK is ashamed of the British Empire, that's a mental thing to say. That's insane.
Starmer has been so much more deadly and dangerous and destructive to Britain than Putin ever thought. Putin's done nothing to Britain at all.
Well, Putin did a chemical weapons attack authorized a chemical weapons attack on the streets of
Did he bring millions of migrants into your country against your will? Has he run the NHS into the ground?
Yeah, these are apples and oranges. You can say that Putin's a scumbag.
So this is like
without.
Yeah, Putin's bad. Okay, fine. Putin's bad, but like. Embrace reality for a second. Your problems are the fault of your leaders, and they're your fault for putting up with them. The same is true in the United States. Our problems are our fault. They're not the fault of some foreign. By the way, not the fault of Israel. I just want to say that. Our problems are not the fault of Israel.
No, I'm not saying that it's the fault of Israel per se, but it is the fault of certain people that might be affiliated with that country. There's nothing wrong. Like the same as there's people that would be affiliated or sympathetic towards Saudi Arabia or Pakistan. The Shabana Mahmood, for example, and Sadiq Khan, eminent Pakistanis, also Muslims, but they are the ones that championed the airport being built in Lalapur or whatever it's called, that place in Pakistan. There's people in our country that have strong ties and affiliations to outside interests. That is real. Now, they could be Jewish, they could be Saudi, they could be Chinese. They still exist. Just because you're a Jew, it doesn't mean that you don't have outside interests and affiliations and motivations that are against the British people. This, again, you can be Chinese and do that. You can be Saudi and do that. They still exist. To say that blanket that doesn't exist is ridiculous.
Our problems are the fault of our leaders, because our leaders have sold us out, not made any effort to improve our lives or preserve our nation, and now it's collapsing. And that's true across the West. It's not an endorsement of Putin or of Israel for that matter. It's an endorsement of reality. Don't shift the blame. The blame is on us. Our leaders did this and we allowed them to. So that's just a fact.
It leads me to my final question, actually, which is one I've asked lots of people and have a variety of answers. We can dispute our views on Putin versus Keir Starmer for another episode, I hope. But my final question to you, sir, is Tucker Carlson. Our show is called Harry Cole Saves the West. How would Tucker Carlson save the West? You know, you're obviously you say you're a podcaster now.
He said that with a certain amount of venom, didn't he? A podcaster now.
Or remote log cabin rather than a man in the arena, but I think some people would...
Rather than a man in the arena. Wow, you nasty what a slimy little shit he is. Harry Cole eats the West.
Dispute that, but just as a final thought, how would Tucker Carlson save the West?
Well, you have to restore territorial integrity to the West. You can't allow the West to become a dumping ground for the rest of the world. No. I mean, you cannot allow that. So, deport everyone who doesn't belong there immediately. Yep. Allow stasis to return, calm to return. Like, here's who lives here. Figure out what everyone who lives in your country has in common. It's obviously not going to be race or religion because none of these countries have a strong working majority with anything in common. And figure out what our national identity is. I mean, it's a kind of core rebuilding. I mean, the sills are rotten, like the foundation is caving in. And so you need to start there at the foundation. Yep. What is this country? What does everyone who lives here have in common? Why should we hang together? Why not break apart like so many other countries through history? That's the program that needs to start right away. And you can't do it if there's constant churn in your population. If you wake up and there are people living next door from some country, you don't know who they are, they don't speak your language. It's like, that's not a country. That's a hotel. Yep. And it's not stable. So that's where you need to start right there. I think these countries are on the brink of breaking up. A lot of them. I mean, Belgium has had ethnic strife for hundreds of years because, it's got a divided population linguistically, religiously, but they're all European.
Yeah, they were divided between Germans and French, and they hate each other. And then they thought it would be a good idea to import some Eritreans and Afghanis and fucking Sudanese. Yeah, okay, so diversity wasn't a strength between the French and the Germans, but let's import some fucking Sudanese and that'll fix it.
Europeans, and they're still fighting each other. People fight over very small differences. And these countries now have huge populations with big differences. So how do you keep those countries together? How do you keep them from falling into civil war?
Mass deportations. And I don't care if someone's been here 20 or 30 years, blah, 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 my poor daughter, think of the children, get them out, just deport them all. Like, it sounds horrible, guys, but do you want a country or don't you? Do you want a future as a people or don't you? Because these people, they have their own countries, they're not worried. If Jesus Christ. There's nothing going to happen to their countries, okay? Their countries are stable, they've got growing populations, their government is filled with their own people, doing their own things for their own people. It's only in Western countries where our governments are filled with people that hate us, filled with foreigners that have their own agendas, filled with migrants that ghettoize and then go around stabbing the natives. That's not a stable country. That's not a stable future for any kind of people.
That's the question. And the first thing you do is stop. We need some stability. We need 100 years to think this through. And I would start that today.
So you don't think we're past the point of no return? There's still hope.
Nothing has ever passed the point of no return, but this is a crisis and it was caused by mass migration, which is totally unnatural. It's anti-democratic. And it is the most disruptive, revolutionary thing you can do to any country, and it's been done to every single white country systematically since the end of the Second World War.
Weird.
And I'm not saying anyone should go to jail for it. I'm not, explaining a conspiracy theory. I'm just saying the facts. Just look at the numbers.
Well, there must be a conspiracy theory if it's only happened to white countries. That can't be a coincidence. It just can't be. It's impossible, guys. It is impossible, especially when you've got the WEF and the UN writing papers saying migration replacement. They talk about the reason for doing this, by the way, the reason for this document and the reason that they want to push the migrants into the West to replace the population is because of the low birth rates. But the low birth rates are because they implemented abortion up until, well, up until birth, late-term abortion, up until 12 months you can abort your child. Again, that's 250,000 children every year, at least, that are getting aborted. They also put the men and the women into the workplace and made it impossible to survive, basically, unless both of you are working full-time. That makes it very difficult to have children. They made it unsafe in the UK to let your children outside, so you need to watch them 24 hours a day, but you're both working. So that means you have to pay for daycare, which means that you've got no money to actually plan for the future, which means you're probably not going to be able to afford children in the first place. So all of these things, they're all designed to reduce the amount of reduce the amount of babies that you have. And then once the birth rate plummets, they start importing people with the excuse that the birth rate is plummeting. But again, there's no conspiracy.
And that is a huge deal. We've been told we can't talk about it. Now, of course, it's unavoidable. And someone needs to figure out how to stop that and let a period of calm set in where wise people can figure out a peaceful course forward. And if no one does that, there will not be a peaceful course forward. That's all I'm saying. I'm not even taking a side in it. I'm just observing what's obviously true.
All right, guys, do you think Harry Cole will save the West? Do you think he's going to save the West with those kinds of questions? What do you think of Tucker Carlson, by the way? Let me know down below if you think he's an okay guy or you think he's full of shit. Like, I'm curious to see how you guys think, to see what you say as well, because I don't think I've talked much about Tucker before on this channel, and I've certainly not talked about Harry Cole before. I think this is I think this might be the second video that I've made with him in it, but the first time I had no idea who he is. Again, just let me know what you think, guys. I've talked about quite a lot in this video. Some of it's controversial, I understand. None of it is a call to action because that's illegal. So it's just things that could happen, may happen, things that might happen, should happen. You know, all these things, just questions, philosophical musings, and historical accuracies. Bye.